Okay, the following is a video over 12.6 notes, and this is about surface areas and volumes of spheres and hemispheres. So a sphere is the technical term for a ball, and then a hemisphere is half of a ball. Okay, so you know, we live on one of these things. Planet Earth is in the shape of a sphere. Relatively speaking, and you know how they say the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. Well, that's because the northern half of the globe is above the equator and the southern half is below. Okay, so but we can actually calculate the surface area of these things, and there's the way that we do this is actually beyond the scope of this class. We get all of these formulas that we have for area, surface area and volume, actually come from calculus. From those techniques. So calculus was actually invented before you had a lot of these geometric formulas. A lot of these geometric formulas are based off of calculus concepts. So, but let's talk about the surface area of a sphere. Okay, and I'm going to denote that as S. And what we do is we can actually just do this. We take 4 times pi r squared. Okay, and this is our radius. Okay, you can think of this as the we call this the great circle, and that's the largest possible circle that we could have on this. That's cut through the very, very center. Think of it as like the equator on a globe. But this is our surface area. Okay, we can actually find the volume of this, and the volume is equal to 4/3 times pi times r cubed. Okay, so that's the formula that I'm going to use for volume and surface area for a sphere. But if we have a hemisphere, which is half of a sphere, a hemisphere, then the surface area of that is going to be half the surface area of my sphere. So it's going to be 1/2 times 4 times pi r squared. But then we have to also add on this bottom area of a circle. So I'm going to do another pi r squared here. Okay. So our surface area, if I take half of 4, it's going to be 2 times pi r squared plus the additional pi r squared that is on the bottom of our hemisphere. So additional pi r squared. And I have 2 pi r squared and 1 pi r squared. I can combine those and get 3 pi r squared. Okay, and that would be the surface area for a hemisphere. Okay, now the volume, okay, this one's a little bit easier. We can just take this volume for a sphere and divide it by 2. So I'm going to take 1/2 times 4/3 times pi times our radius cubed. And the 4 and the 2 divide out to 1/2. Okay, or I'm sorry, 2/1. Okay, should be a 1. All right, so our volume then becomes 2/3, so we get 2/3 times pi times radius cubed. Okay, so these we need to keep somewhere safe, somewhere where we're going to be able to remember them on the notes, and I'd put it on your note card for the exam because these are kind of hard to remember. So let's just go ahead and jump into this. It's asking us to find the surface area of the sphere or hemisphere, round to the nearest tenth. So they give us this sphere, and the radius is equal to 7. So my surface area, I'm going to use the formula 4 pi times radius squared. Okay, so I'm going to plug in 7 for r, and I get 4 times pi times 7 squared. So my surface area is going to give me 4 times pi times 49. 4 times 49 is going to give me 196 times pi. Okay, and you plug that into your calculator, and you can end up getting 615.8 inches squared. Okay, and that's the surface area of the sphere. Okay, so if you guys want to just plug this portion into your calculator, it should give you the same answer. Okay, so sometimes some of these problems I'll actually do a little bit more arithmetic to get to what I want to in the end. It kind of depends on the problem. Something like this one, you're just plugging values in, just go ahead and plug them in. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. Number 2 it wants us to find the surface area of the sphere, but we're given that the diameter is equal to 32 meters. So if my diameter is 32 meters, then my radius is half of that, which is going to be 16 meters. Okay? So I'm going to use the same formula. S is equal to 4 times pi times my radius squared. So S is equal to 4 times pi times 16, that's 16 squared. Okay, so then I'm just going to plug this into the calculator. If you do 16 squared times 4, you get 1,024 pi. And if you evaluate that, then that's going to give you 3,217. If we round to the nearest tenth, this gives you like 0.99 something, so we just go ahead and round up. And this is in meters squared. Okay, so I want to make sure we label that. Did I label the one before? Yeah, inches squared. Okay, we want meters squared. Okay, number three. Number three is a little bit tricky. Okay, it says the area of the great circle. Now, when I say the great circle, that's this circle right here. Okay, so the area, they give us the area of that circle, and it wants us to find the surface area of the sphere. Okay, but this is a hemisphere. Okay, so ultimately, the surface area for a hemisphere is going to be 3 times pi times my radius squared. So what I need to find is my radius. Okay, and I don't know what that is. But I'm given that the area is equal to 28.6 inches squared. Okay, and I know the formula for area is pi times my radius squared, and I'm going to set that equal to 28.6. Now what I do here to solve this is a little bit unique. I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by pi. Divide both sides by pi here. And so I get r squared is equal to 28.6 divided by pi. Okay, and then I'm going to take the square root of this and take the square root to get just r. So I get r is equal to the square root of 28.6 over pi. Now I'm going to leave it like this. This is my exact answer. Now remember, we prefer to operate with exact numbers as opposed to rounded numbers. You could get a value for this if you plug this into your calculator, but I want to use it exactly here. Now there's a reason why I'm going to use this. Okay. Now my exact answer, if I plug it into my surface area formula, I get 3 times pi times the quantity, my radius, which is 28.6, so 28.6 over pi. If I square that whole thing, okay, I kind of looked at that and looked at the problem and said, oh, well, if I square this, it's just going to get rid of my square root. So I get my surface area is equal to 3 times pi times 28.6 divided by pi. Now this is over 1. Now because I'm multiplying everything, I can divide out my pi's, and my surface area is equal to 3 times 28.6. And when I multiply those together, I end up getting 85.8. And this is what? Inches squared? Okay, now guys, you could still plug all of this into your calculator and get 85.8, but I would prefer you to just, maybe try and operate it with a little bit. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the last three. Last three should go fairly quickly. Now here we're given that the diameter is equal to 16.2 centimeters. If I'm trying to find the volume, I need to get my radius. So my radius is equal to 8.1 centimeters. Okay, so my volume equals 4/3 pi times radius cubed. So I'm just going to plug in 8.1 into my radius, and so I get volume is 4/3 times pi times 8.1 cubed. All right. And so when I plug all of that into the calculator, you get kind of a big number here. I get 2,226.1 centimeters cubed. All right. So guys, I mean, this is just formula work. All right. If you can identify what those measurements are, plug them in the formula and just go at it. All right. Okay, number 5. Let's go ahead, and I'm given my diameter is 94.8 feet. Okay, so my radius is going to be half of that. My radius, if I divide that by 2, is 47.4 feet. All right, so I'm going to plug that into my formula. Volume equals 4/3 pi times my radius, which is 47.4 feet cubed. Okay, when I plug all of that in, I get a huge number. I get 446,000 91.2 feet cubed. All right. So again, just plug and chug. All right. Let's take a look at the last one. The last one's a hemisphere. Okay. It has, and it gives the circumference of the great circle. Remember, the great circle is this. So it gives us the circumference. All right. So my formula is volume equals 2/3 pi times radius cubed. All right, so, but they give me that the circumference is equal to 26 meters. So if I wanted to find, and I know that my circumference is equal to 2 times pi times my radius, okay? So I can set these two equal to each other because they're both equal to my circumference. So I can do 2 times pi times my radius is equal to 26. Now, if I divide by 2 pi on both sides, which I can do, those divide out, and I'm left with that r equals 26 over 2 pi. Well, 26 and 2 divide out to 13 over pi. And this is my radius, okay? And I'm going to plug this into my formula up here. Now I get volume equals 2/3 times pi times the quantity, 13 over pi, quantity cubed. And when I plug that into the calculator, oh dear, I haven't done that yet. Okay, if I do 2/3 times pi times 13 over pi, that quantity cubed, I'm going to end up getting the volume of the surface area is 148.4, and that's meters cubed is my volume of that hemisphere. So hopefully this helps. Again, guys, you're just using formulas, all right? And sometimes you're going to be given some problems where you got to find measurements, and that's okay. But you've got to know what, do what you know, and it should be all right. So please get started on your homework. Thank you.